friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hantz. Each week, I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Judge Mentalist of Carnival of Dreams. The Carnival of Dreams is a hyper-interactive hypnosis show where the audience members provide potential suggestions as they enter the theater, ensuring that each and every show is as different as the audience itself.
Which is what makes it so crucial that I don't embarrass anybody on stage, because I know that at the end of this, I'm telling them that they're going to remember everything and they're going to be very proud of everything that they did because they were the stars of that show. And when they emerge, and there's that huge applause from the audience, which is for them and not for me, because they were the ones that were performing in this show. I'm just kind of the facilitator. I'm taking them and guiding them on the journey. I'm getting them in the state that allows them to take this journey. They're the ones that are the show. It's really a brilliant and amazing thing. You can't go to Broadway and jump up on stage and be part of the show.
Hypnotist Judge Mentalist has been mesmerizing audiences all over the world for years. Beginning his performance career as a mind-reading mentalist, Judge Mentalist has evolved his skill set in routines to the influential and amazing world of hypnosis. He has hypnotized thousands of volunteers and made each and every one of them the star of one of his amazing stage performances. In his career, he has performed for audiences large and small, public events, school events, and fundraisers. He has assisted nonprofit organizations and school groups to raise over $100,000 through his performances since 2023. Judge Mentalist, welcome to What the Fringe.
Hey, it's great to see you again, even though not in person this time. Thanks so much for having me.
I know, I'm so excited. Well, we met at Rochester Fringe last year and just kind of connected, and you had me as a guest on your podcast, which was really fun. And we just had a good time hanging out there. And so I was really excited to have you on the podcast. And I know you're not technically in the magic genre, but it's in that. I would say I haven't had anybody that's a hypnotist or in the magic genre on the podcast. So I was super excited to have you on to talk about kind of this little genre.
Well, here we go. I guess you're about ready. Well, one of the things I will say is that I kind of am, because a lot of the times I do a show that's a 2-act show. You met my stage partner and we did that podcast together called Between Two Minds. In Rochester, we ended up, because we were new to Fringe at the time, and I guess we're still kind of new to Fringe, we didn't know that you could kind of work around and be like, hey, we've got this 90-minute show that we'd love to do all in one venue, and all of the restrictions were saying, 60, 70 minutes max. So what we did, because the way that the show runs, it's 2 acts with an intermission in the middle, there's not a ton of crossover. Thematically there is, but you can watch one half without the other. So we applied separately. We both got booked. No overlap, except we were there for the same week of the Fringe. So it was super convenient. We shared an Airbnb. We helped tech each other's shows. That part of it was great. So in that sense, I am involved in that world, and it's kind of a cousin and it's adjacent to it. So yeah, sure. Let's say we're kind of in that world.
Yeah, we're kind of yeah, exactly. That's good. I know I didn't want to pigeonhole you and be like, you do magic, which is not what you do. You're a hypnotist, which is very different. But it's like you said, a cousin to it. It's kind of in that awe and wonder that people have when they kind of come to a show of what's going on in front of them. So let's hop in with, what is hypnosis? How does it work? I know I was watching something of yours recently and you were talking about it. And so just give us all the details on it.
In your mind, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the part that is doing all of the things that you don't think about. Except for the fact that when I say that those things include breathing and your heart beating and, everything else, now you start to think about them. But absent this conversation, you don't think about those things. Your conscious mind is what's taking in everything around you, and that's where judgment comes from. That's where all of that, should I really do that? Is my fly down? Whatever those things that you're thinking about, whether positive or negative. And quite frankly, it's the barrier that gets in the way of having a good time. Okay? When you go out, if you're a drinker and you have a few drinks and your inhibitions get lower, that's your conscious mind starting to just not care and disappear a little bit. However, all of those other things are still happening. You're breathing, your heart's beating, and your life is going on. You're walking around. You may not remember in that state everything that happened. Hypnosis has some similarities. It's certainly not drunkenness, but it is a way to just say, hey, conscious mind, take a time out. We're going to tap into the subconscious mind, which is really where your creativity comes from. And it allows us to do some really fun and funny things on stage. Also, in a clinical standpoint, it really allows us to reset certain things and reprogram certain things. A lot of people use it to stop smoking, to control their weight, to quit or start habits. All of that stuff can happen because, they say it takes 21 days of doing something consecutively to create a habit. Well, if we can tap right into the subconscious mind and say, hey, this is now who you are. This is a priority for you. This is a thing. Guess what? Day 21 is today. And that's a very, very shrunk it down into a sound bite of what happens a lot of times in clinical hypnosis. It allows us to redefine who we are, because a lot of people who do those things that we don't want to do, whether they be smoking or drugs or overdrink or overeat, begin to define themselves as a smoker, as somebody that eats too much or whatever it is. So reframing that really allows people to get past those things that they want to get past. And of course, on stage, we use it to just open up, find out sometimes that we have talents that we didn't already know about. And the cool thing about it is, as a participant in one of these shows, when you're in trance, every suggestion, and it's very different for everybody, but it's very, very real what you're experiencing. So I have done things in shows where I take people to outer space. I have them be the first humans on the planet Mars. And the stories that I hear from people about their journey, about feeling that they were really, really there, they didn't leave the stage. To them, they had this surreal experience that was very, very unique and personal to them, because it all operates off of the references that we have in our own mind. So that's really, in a nutshell, it's kind of like just really getting to the root and the core of it and saying, hey, let's have some fun, and we're not going to worry about what anybody thinks. And people become the stars of the show when they're in the show.
That's really cool. And my brain just went to the clinical side really quick. But what does that have to do with neuropathways? We've got neuropathways in our brains. And it sounds like if you're doing some kind of clinical hypnosis, you're kind of jumping over those neuropathways or covering them up and making new ones immediately. You're
really rewiring your mind. So the things that you crave that you don't want to crave, and again, a lot of times it comes from, hey, I want to eat less sweets. I want to stop smoking. I want to stop chewing my nails, or any other number of things. Or I have a fear of spiders because of, my brother, my sister, my whatever dumped a bunch of them on me when I was a kid, or I was walking through the woods and ran into a spider's web, or whatever it was, and it just totally freaked me out, and I haven't been able to be near them since. Any of those things. Now, this isn't something that I do on a regular basis. I do have a certification in it, but I didn't get that certification for the purposes of practicing. I just wanted to know a lot more about what it is, what's happening when I'm doing what I'm doing. Because when I do this stuff, it's fun, it's silly, we have a good time. We don't really cross any sort of boundaries or anything inappropriate. I don't embarrass anybody on stage because, well, the moment I start doing that is when I start counting the days to the end of my career. So I have zero interest in embarrassing anybody on stage, which is going to be a big part of what I'm doing in Barcelona in November. I'm throwing a new challenge at myself.
So with what you do is you're tapping into people's creativity is what it sounds like, which is really interesting. And like when you're tapping into their subconscious, it's what they know about, like if you're sending someone to outer space. So I've watched films, I've talked to people. I have a family member that works for NASA. I have read books. I've looked through a kid's book about outer space, right? Which could be totally crazy. Or maybe one day we just did a drawing or something, or I've worked on a play. So all of those things are kind of living in the subconscious, and then they pop up, and that's like the adventure that I go on. Is that what's happening?
Yeah. And that happens in pretty much any context. It draws off of whatever references that are there. Like I have a routine in some of my shows where the people on my stage become showgirls. And every so often I'll get a couple of people that'll link arms and start doing a kick line like the Rockettes. I didn't tell them to do a kick line, but that's what being a showgirl meant to them in that moment. And that's where you literally get transported to this place. Wherever it is, whatever the moment is, you're there. Like if you ask those people. So hypnotists do this different ways. Some hypnotists at the end of their show, because one of the phenomenons that's very, very prevalent in hypnosis is amnesia. And sometimes that is forgetting things. Sometimes that is a time perception where you think that you were on stage for a shorter period or a longer period of time that you were. I leave them with the suggestion that they will remember everything that happened on stage. And a lot of this is because I aim to create a more experiential journey than just, hey, you're a bodybuilder. Hey, you're the juggler. You're a mime. I've done things like that. They creep their way into the shows. But if I have an opportunity, and usually I do, for at least a segment of the show, to take people on a journey, we're going there.
That's cool. It's like a little gift you get to give them. They get to remember all the little things that they've tapped to into their brains.
Which is what makes it so crucial that I don't embarrass anybody on stage, because I know that at the end of this, I'm telling them that they're going to remember everything, and they're going to be very proud of everything that they did because they were the stars of that show. And when they emerge and there's that huge applause from the audience, which is for them and not for me, because they were the ones that were performing in this show. I'm just kind of the facilitator. I'm taking them and guiding them on the journey. I'm getting them in the state that allows them to take this journey. They're the ones that are the show. It's really a brilliant and amazing thing. You can't go to Broadway and jump up on stage and be part of the show. For the most part, you can't. There's some audience interaction in magic and mentalism shows, but you're not on stage 90% of the show. You're not the one that everybody's paying attention to the whole time. But in these shows, you are.
That is so fun. I love that. I'm sad that I didn't get to see the show.
We will be, again, at the same place at the same time. And you will get to go on one of these journeys, and maybe you get to do something like what I'm doing. If what I'm doing in Barcelona works, it's going to become something that I'm doing more and more, because it's risky, but it's super fun, it's super creative, and it's hyper interactive.
Let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's dive into that. So this new show, Carnival of Dreams, and you say it's hyper interactive. So walk me through what's going to happen and what you kind of have up your sleeves and what our audience is going to get to experience.
The best way to describe it, these aren't my shows. These are your shows. You attend these shows, you're going to effectively and within reason tell me what to do. So I'm still toying around with two different ways of doing it, but ultimately audience members are going to be prompted for typical types of routines that you would see in a hypnosis show, and encouraged to come up with ideas of their own that are not on the board or the handout or whatever it is I'm using to facilitate this message. Come up with unique and fun things that you'd like to see in tonight's show. Keep in mind, you might be on stage, so keep it clean. I will vet all of these. This is not going to be a random hodgepodge of, oh, look, jump off of a bridge. No, we're not going to, there's nothing that is going to, when I learned to do this years ago, a full day and a half was spent by my trainer teaching us the safety and ethics. So that is something that is ingrained in me, that is super important to me, and that's not going to change. So I'm going to go through and make sure that everything is clean. And then the part of it that I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to, because Fringe is about being experimental, trying new things, pushing boundaries. It's what I love about it. I may or may not write the show and then do the show, literally within minutes, like this can go here and that can go there, and boom, we've got a show. Or I might write some of the show and then literally pull ideas on the fly and make it really a round robin of randomness. And I may start one way, and then that may facilitate me wanting to do the other way. The great thing about Fringe is that you can tweak it and you can change it from show to show. I'm also toying around with the idea, as the show starts, there's an intro. We explain what hypnosis is, what it isn't, why you might want to be up on stage, all the fun stuff that we've talked about here, because I think it's really important that everybody in the audience knows that if there was something that was inappropriate in there, that I've taken it out. I may read out loud any and all of the inappropriate things that you're not going to see here on stage, and bad on you for suggesting them. I'm hoping that will help people understand. The beginning of my show is designed to do that anyway, to let them know that I'm going to keep them safe. They're not going to embarrass themselves. And, we're here to have a good time. And quite frankly, I'm going to leave everybody better than they were before they came up on my stage. And then we're going to have at it. And I have a feeling that whether or not the whole concept becomes a long-term winner, there are going to be some ideas that come from this that really become unique and really a mainstay in some of my shows where I know what I'm doing before I show up. But the cool thing about it is, even in those shows, there are no two shows that are anywhere alike, because just the audience members that I have on stage, and as we talked about, their personal experiences and references and everything make each and every one of these shows incredibly unique without this experimental concept.
Yeah, that's exciting. So I think I saw you talking about the, people going to outer space, and I saw people buckling their belts and stuff. It was very cute. And so normally in a show, you might have an outline of like, I'm going to take people to outer space, then I'm going to take them to a disco, and then I'm going to take them so you kind of know where you're going. So that's how that's differing from this show where you, like you just explained, you might have a little bit or you might not, but you're really getting the audience input to be like, well, they don't want to see anybody go to space. They want to see everybody work on a farm or whatever.
Right. And honestly, anything appropriate's in play. And it really becomes my job to take that and not just make it people that are working on a farm. They're going to work on a farm, and then all of a sudden, maybe what's growing out of the ground is a larger-than-life bunny rabbit that starts chasing them around on stage. I don't know, because it's going to go exactly like this, where something just fires into my head, and now we're going to go down in that direction. And then maybe that bunny starts juggling eggs and starts tossing the eggs to the person, and then they start juggling multiple. I don't know. I'm coming up with this stuff literally on the fly as we're doing this, which is what you might see in Barcelona. Because that's the beautiful thing, is you can take this wherever you want to go. And it's almost like there's going to be some elements of an improv show that are going to come into play. And it's my job to take that idea, which quite frankly, I don't expect these to be amazing. I'm going to be the one that has to do the work to take this. Okay, cool. We can take this. We can work with it. But I've got to figure out where we're going to go. Where are we going to go next? What are the twists and turns? How are we going to create some fun conflict here that really makes this interesting? Otherwise, we're just ho-hum, okay now.
Driving a tractor, milking the cow.
Right.
But nobody wants to really see that. They want to see more. And so that's what you, as the kind of the facilitator, get to add in these fun things like giant bunny rabbits and
right. Or if you're going to get that personal with the cow, maybe she wants to dance with you or something. And then you might be dancing with cows on stage. This free form of, hey, where do we go next is what you're going to see on that stage. I'm super excited for it. My fingers, and again, I'm going to have a plan B. So if there becomes a night where it's really just, hey, we want to see the show, but we're not interested in writing stuff down, then I'll have a show. There's going to be a show. So there's no doubt it's going to be fun. It's only going to be as unique as the audience allows it to be. Now, here's the thing. Barcelona, from my understanding, has a very vibrant comedy scene and a very vibrant English-speaking comedy scene. So I'm guessing I'm going to have some real zingers to work with, and I'm super looking forward to it.
That's exciting. I would think that your show in some ways would translate, because you're going to Spain. I haven't had a lot of people on that have done the kind of that European circuit outside of Edinburgh. I would think your show would translate in foreign languages, even though they might not understand what you're saying. They're watching everything that's going on. But how do you kind of expect the audiences to kind of go along on this ride with you, with maybe some language barriers or not language barriers?
So part of the decision-making process and even applying to the Fringe was learning about, the English-speaking scene there and really kind of there's a bunch of English-speaking comedy clubs that are doing shows on the regular. So they're kind of accustomed to it. It's an interesting area because it's a real hodgepodge and blend. You've got some, it's Catalan. You've got some French influence, some Spanish. There's a lot of English speakers. So I took 5 years of Spanish in high school. And as you can see, high school was probably a while ago for me. So we're refreshing, and I'm surprising myself with what I remember and surprising myself with what I've forgotten. So I'm going to keep it that and do as much of that as I can because it's a beautiful, beautiful city. I've never been. I'm so looking forward to it. This was a Fringe that we'll just compare it to Rochester where we met. I went to undergrad in Rochester, so I was excited to get back there. I was excited to turn the corner and be like, oh, I remember this, but not so much a trip that the wife was like, hey, you want me to go with you? That wasn't even a conversation. Barcelona, those flights are already booked, even though as of the time of us recording this, I don't even have show dates yet. I know the minimum amount of shows I'm going to do, and I know the time frame that I'm going to be doing them, and I know my own restrictions for when I have to be back, but we're in. Flights are booked. We're there. So she's coming with.
That's exciting. Well, let's go back a little bit to like getting into hypnosis. How does one even get into that? What drew you to this kind of performative art?
I can tell you when it comes to like magic and mind reading, some of the earliest things that I remember. When it comes to hypnosis, not so much, but I've always had this draw and interest in it. So what I got into first was really mentalism and mind reading, which for anybody out there who is a skeptic, good on you. Because the difference between me doing a mind reading show, and this isn't something that I would shy away from if I were doing a mind reading show, nothing that Bernardo, my stage partner in that 2-act show, is going to be mad about. But everything I'm telling you, for the most part, is an absolute lie, at least when it comes to what I'm actually doing. Hypnosis, on the other hand, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. You can follow along. Sometimes, rarely, because I tell people, it's up to you, but most people choose because it's all voluntary, okay? I have a row of empty seats as the show starts. Most of the time, I have an interesting story about that, where people were like, nope, we're sitting in these seats now. We're going to be in the show. But it's purely voluntary. And, I set the stage for this is what it is, what it isn't, like I said. And then there's a certain point in which it's time to volunteer. And people, it's first come, first serve on those seats. However, if people end up following along out in the audience, they may find themselves up on that stage. Because usually, if I have 10 to 12 people up on stage, there's 2 to 3 that are just not going to get where I need them to get for us to do a show. And they're going to end up getting sent down, and that's okay. Totally normal part of it. So if you see that in a hypnosis show, don't think it's weird. It's actually very, very normal. But if there is somebody out in the audience that's like, hey, I didn't get a seat, but I'm going to go on this journey, I'm going to pick up on that, and I'm going to get them up on the stage safely. They may not remember how they got there, even though they're going to remember everything they did while they were there. And they're now tagged, you're in, part of the show.
So people are getting hypnotized just being in the audience because they're opening themselves up to that, or saying, yes, hey, I want to go on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's many people will tell you, and I fully agree with this, that all hypnosis is some form of self-hypnosis. As the hypnotist, as the entertainer, it's really my job to be a guide and to train these people how to hypnotize themselves in like 4 or 5 minutes. That's the journey. That's what we do. That's how it gets started. So there's different techniques and different methods to do it. I'm going to be doing a little bit more digging and research to find out, as you mentioned, with the potential language barriers. Hey, there are, in my purely English-speaking audience, the method that I use is effective 80+% of the time. I mean, and what I mean by that isn't that 80% of my shows succeed. I mean, about 80% of the people that come up to volunteer stay. There are probably going to be some ways that I'm going to tweak things, especially that part of the show, to make sure that that translates. But if we were sitting face to face, and I know that you're a very, very creative person, I could probably, if you wanted to, hypnotize you without saying a word. So the ability to do, and I won't necessarily do that in the show, because again, I'm doing a show. So part of what I do is about bringing the entire audience, whether you're on stage or out in the audience, into the ritual and into the journey. Even though they may not participate directly in the hypnosis part of it, and of course in Carnival of Dreams, they very well may be participating in what's going to happen next because they've provided suggestions. Kind of like an improv show, except I get a little bit of advance notice and there's not all this cross-yelling going on. And I've got the receipts to show that you wrote this down on the piece of paper. It's not 3 people yelling something that's totally off base. Me like, did I hear somebody say yellow? Okay, great. When nobody may have said yellow because I want it to go that way.
So you do a lot of kind of like corporate gigs and educational gigs and that kind of things. But what made you want to get into Fringe particularly?
Number one, it's the travel, going new places. So you're from Houston, right? If I got booked for a school gig or a corporate gig or something, I'm flying into Houston maybe the day before, possibly the morning of. I'm doing the show and I'm going home that night or the next. Here, you're there for a week, sometimes more. You really get to explore. You really get to immerse. You get to see other people's shows. If you're doing Fringe and you think you're just going to go do your show and then go home, that's foolish. You're missing out on amazing opportunities to see a lot of fun stuff because there's so much fun stuff. And there are people that are just so good at what they're doing different things, or stretching the boundaries, or being experimental, or having extra fun with it because they can. And it's a place to fail forward sometimes, because sometimes I'll do a show and then it'll be 2 weeks till I do another one. Here, boom, boom, boom. In Rochester, I did 5 shows in 6 days. I'm expecting somewhat of a similar schedule in Barcelona. There was a day that I did 2 shows in 1 day. I love it. Let's go.
That's great. That's so much fun. We have a few minutes left. I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of the corporate stuff that you get, because it is different. Like, so Fringe, you get to travel, you get to see other shows, you get the kind of consistency. But as many of us artists know, the corporate gigs pay our bills a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, those are, on the corporate side of things, sometimes there'll be team building type of things. Sometimes it's purely to be entertaining. Sometimes they're holiday parties, things of that nature. It's really a mixed bag there. A lot of what I do that's in that same kind of vein is working with high schools. a lot of regions will do a whole night after the prom where they bring everybody either into a community center or into the gymnasium, and they'll have moon bounces and food, and they're keeping the kids safe. They're not out there drinking and driving and creating the next batch of high schoolers. And hypnosis shows are a big thing to bring into that setting. And then the big thing that I love doing, because it really, you mentioned the money, this is really where the money comes from, is doing fundraiser shows for high schools, for organizations or sports teams within high schools. I do those, a lot of people think fundraiser equals charity and that I have to give my services for free. No, I work together with these schools. We do a split of the ticket sales, and then I have a team that actually sells sponsorships. So they're doing the ticket sales, and the more tickets that they sell, the lower my percentage actually gets. So they're incentivized to fill that room because they'll get a higher percentage of all the ticket sales if they fill that room. And then they get extra bonus money because my team's reaching out to businesses within that community saying, hey, it might be a high school marching band. It might be a sophomore or a junior class, a sports team or a booster organization. All of these are places in which I've done these fundraiser shows for, continue to do so. I do it without taking a deposit. There's no money up front. There's no guarantee for me. I bear a little bit of that risk. Then I hop on a plane and I come out there and put myself up, and then we do the show. It's just whatever the split of the fee is based on the ticket sales and the sponsorships. My team's strong enough that I can make sure that my expenses are covered with those sponsorships. So it's generally not an issue, and it's a great win-win.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. And especially for a lot of my listeners, for artists to hear about the kind of creative ways that we can still get to perform and be involved in the community and make a nice paycheck, which is what we all want. I mean, we all want to make our art, right? But it's lovely when people see the value of that. And you're kind of taking that even a step further of really helping build communities in a really fun and unique way. It's very, very exciting. Okay, well, we've got just a few minutes left. So I'm going to ask my famous last question, which is, what has been your most interesting or awkward Fringe interaction? Or since you've done a slew of shows, and I'm sure you've got really fun stories, but I'd love to hear just a fun little story to send us off here.
Well, this is one that was a little bit of a tough spot, and it kind of shows the versatility that you have to have as a hypnotist. So in that Rochester Fringe run, it was really the first long run Fringe that I had done. I had done Fringes in the past, but it was usually one or two shows within it. And so getting excited to get, hey, here's a handful of dates and times. And I'm like, yep, let's go. And I don't want to say that I didn't look at those dates and times, but when I had a 1 p.m. Sunday, week 2 of the NFL season, I want to say that it was in Rochester, I did a show for 5 people.
Yeah, because everybody's sitting at home watching TV.
And the Bills had played the Thursday night game, which is where most of the people are, but still, it's NFL Sunday, and it's an NFL city. I will tell you that the more people I have in my audience, the easier my job is. Because those creative people that have the mindset to really get where I need them to be and be absolute rock stars on stage, those people find their way to the stage. Well, when there's 5 people, now we're in one of those, is this going to work modes. I'm not getting all 5 people up on stage. I recently just spent a week in Las Vegas with my mentor, and we talked about that. And we talked about one of his smallest shows, which I think was 6 people. And he's like, I did a totally different show. And I'm like, I wish we had this conversation, because he's like, I brought everybody up on stage. I put chairs in a circle, and we just did the show from there in that way. And I'm like, I now have another tool in my tool belt. So if that happens to me again, I know what gear to shift into, because it wasn't something I was just like, I just ran the show relatively normal. It was definitely different for just 5 people, but I had one volunteer save my behind and come up on stage. But he was fantastic. Ton of fun. Many of my videos sell online. people buy them. They want to buy them from the show. I told him, if you want a copy of this video, you email me. It is yours. I will not sell it to you, but you can have it. Don't get me wrong. It's not because I'm not proud of it. It was an accomplishment to be able to pull that show off, because a lot of people would be like, okay, we got to cancel the show. There's not enough people here. No, these people are here to see a show. They're going to see a show.
That's cool. I love that little thing that you have in your pocket when you do have a small audience, because it happens at Fringe, and that you've got this way to really involve everybody and to make it fun.
I should have had the knowledge and foresight. I went to undergrad in Rochester. I know what that town was about and still is. Okay. I should have known that, hey, maybe that one, not so much. I don't know that. In Barcelona, I am in the wind.
Oh, man. Well, you are going to do great. It's very exciting. Well, we've come to our end, so I'm just really glad that you came on today and got to share about your art and what you do. And just thank you, Judge Mentalist, for being here.
Well, it's really great, as always, to reconnect with you. And I know that you're on your way to another Fringe, and after that, you will be again. So our paths will cross in person, I'm sure. We'll go on a journey together.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Judge Mentalist will be taking that newest show that we've been talking about, Carnival of Dreams, to the 2025 Barcelona Fringe, which happens October 31st through November 9th. And that is in Barcelona. I feel like I have to say it like that. Barcelona, Spain. But you can learn more about Judge Mentalist on his website at judgementalist.com and on carnivalofdreams.com. Both of those will be linked in the show notes. You can keep up with Judge Mentalist on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Psych-ish. And that will be linked down there, how to spell all of that, and on TikTok at Judge Mentalist. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hance. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound. And our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and now on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release, and keep up with us on What the Fringe and Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. Learning to pitch your show is the key to getting a lot of people at your Fringe show. And I think I have come up with the next greatest pitch.
Now, this isn't something that I do on a regular basis. I do have a certification in it, but I didn't get that certification for the purposes of practicing. I just wanted to know a lot more about what it is, what's happening when I'm doing what I'm doing.